At 52, he wasn't broke. He wasn't sick. He wasn't alone. There was no dramatic collapse. No hospital room. No phone call in the middle of the night. Just a quiet moment. Sitting in his car outside his office building, engine off, hands resting on the steering wheel. And in that stillness, a thought appeared. Soft but unmistakable. He had lived the wrong life. And what shook him most was not the realization itself, but the fact that no one had ever forced him to. His name was Michael. He lived in a quiet suburb outside Chicago. Tree-lined streets, neighbors who waved politely, lawns that were always trimmed. His house was clean. His bills were paid. His calendar was always full. Michael had a job most people respected. The kind of job parents brag about. The kind that looks good on paper. For nearly 30 years, he had done exactly what was expected of him. He studied hard. He took the safe job. He worked overtime without complaint. He stayed late. He showed up early. When opportunities came, he took the sensible ones. And when doubt appeared, he pushed it aside with one familiar sentence. This is what adults do. For a long time, that sentence felt true. But before the schedules, before the meetings, before the careful life, Michael had a dream he rarely talked about. He wanted to write. Not for fame, not to be rich. He wanted to tell stories. Stories that made people pause. Stories that felt honest. In his 20s, he filled notebooks late at night. Wrote paragraphs no one else ever saw. But life has a quiet way of negotiating with dreams. Dreams don't pay mortgages. Dreams don't feel responsible. Dreams don't impress relatives at Thanksgiving. So Michael made a trade. He chose stability. He chose certainty. He chose later. And he told himself, with complete sincerity, I'll come back to this someday. They passed. The years didn't pass loudly, efficiently. Promotions came. Responsibilities grew. Life became full, but never deep. Michael woke up before the sun, drove the same route every morning, parked in the same spot, sat through the same meetings. He answered emails, solved problems, met deadlines, and every evening he returned home tired in a way sleep didn't fix, not exhausted, just empty. At night, sitting quietly, he felt a dull heaviness settle in his chest. Not sadness, not anger, just absence. And when the thought appeared, is this all there is? He dismissed it quickly. This is normal, he told himself. Everyone feels this way. This is adulthood. Then one Tuesday morning, everything stopped. Not because of tragedy, not because of loss, because of a question. Sitting in his parked car, engine off, watching people walk into the building. A thought surfaced, uninvited. If nothing changes, is this how I'll feel at 62? He tried to brush it away, but it stayed. And for the first time in his life, Michael didn't know how to lie to himself. That morning, something cracked. Michael realized he had confused being busy with being alive. He had spent decades building a life he could explain to others, but not a life he could feel inside. That night, he opened a drawer he rarely touched. Inside were old notebooks, yellowed pages, half-finished stories, ideas written by a younger version of himself, a man who still believed time was patient. Michael sat on the floor, holding one notebook in his hands. And quietly, almost in a whisper, he said, I abandoned you. The regret didn't arrive all at once. It arrived in moments, watching younger coworkers talk about passions he once had, realizing he couldn't remember the last time he felt genuinely proud, understanding that someday was no longer a promise. It was a question mark. At 52, time stopped feeling generous. It began to feel precise. Michael didn't quit his job. He didn't sell his house. He didn't announce a new life. He did something smaller. He set his alarm 1 hour earlier. That hour belonged to him. No phone, no emails, no noise, just writing. At first, it felt awkward, uncomfortable. like speaking a language he once knew but hadn't used in decades. But slowly, something returned. Weeks passed, then months. Michael didn't become famous. No one applauded. But something better happened. He became honest. He started saying no more often, listening more closely, living slower. The heaviness began to lift. Not because life got easier, but because it finally felt true. At 54, Michael published his first short story online. Only a few people read it. But one comment said, "This made me feel less alone." Michael stared at the screen for a long time and smiled. Michael didn't fail at life. He simply forgot to ask himself one question early enough. Whose life am I living? Success isn't about money, or titles, or approval. It's about alignment. And it's never too late to begin again. But it does get quieter when time is running out. If this story felt familiar, you're not alone. Subscribe to Quiet Life Stories for calm, honest stories about life, regret, and wisdom, told slowly for those who are listening.